This week on Grow Your Credit Union, 2 cyber attacks go undetected for months. Are we blind to threats already in our systems? Then BECU says boring is better. What does that mean? And finally, a SaaS company hit $100 million in annual recurring revenue without sales or VC funding. Could credit unions grow the same way? Welcome to Grow Your Credit Union. This is the podcast where credit union leaders gather, learn, and grow. I am your host, Joshua Barkley, and with me is my co-host, Becky Reed. Becky, what's up?
Howdy, y'all.
Howdy, Becky. Listen, folks, I know that we cover a lot of topics, but anything that you want us to cover that we are currently not, please reach out to me on LinkedIn or Joshua at growyourcreditunion.com. So all the questions that you think we should be asking our guests, reach out to me and let me know. All right, Becky, I had a long weekend. I went to a concert. I went to the Hoover Dam. I was in Nevada, hot and sweaty. What did you do last weekend, Becky?
I was on a cruise last weekend.
Really?
So I was out in Fort Lauderdale where Kevin is. And well, the cruise left out of Fort Lauderdale. Obviously, it went to the Bahamas. But yeah, so I was, sun and sand and beach and all of that kind of stuff.
Okay. And what did you see of note? A beach, sand, the water. Well, was there anything in particular you can think of? A statue of Walt Disney? What did you see?
No, there weren't any Walt Disney statues in the Bahamas. But one thing that was interesting, we visited an island that I hadn't visited before. It's Bimini. And it's only 60 miles off the coast of Florida. It's not very far away. And because the ship was sailing for a whole day. And so because it didn't have to travel very far, literally the ship was just sitting in the middle of the ocean, not going anywhere. It was kind of interesting. It was I guess we're just parked here for now. But when we finally got to Bimini, that is a really, really small island. Literally there's one road and you could walk across it. It's long as a football field. It was, I think the ship was bigger than the island.
Becky, you mentioned the ship not moving. I go to Salt Lake Film Society and they play old movies in their theater. And I saw Titanic, the James Cameron classic. And I got to tell you, cruise ships freak me out. I've seen the Titanic, that movie 6-7 times. Towards the end, when it gets dark and that ship starts to sink, it still freaks me out.
Oh, yeah.
Even when I was a little kid watching that movie, it holds up. So no, I will not be on a cruise. But what I will be doing today is cruising on this show with our awesome guest. Let's introduce him. Today, we welcome the COO at Addition Financial Credit Union, Kevin Dougherty. Kevin, welcome to the podcast.
Joshua, Becky, thanks so much for having me on your show today. I'm really looking forward to it.
Two credit unions recently suffered major cyber attacks that exposed over 26,000 members' personal data. Good Neighbors FCU in New York had hackers in their system for 4 months before detecting the breach. So here's my question, Kevin. If it can take 4 months to spot a cybersecurity breach, are credit unions flying blind against cyber threats that could already be in their systems right now?
Cybersecurity is a constant battle. And while there's no system that's infallible, all credit unions are investing heavily in advanced threat detection, layered defenses. Incidents like these are reminders that vigilance, employee training is critical. Proactive monitoring are critical. While a 4-month undetected breach is concerning, it's also a wake-up call to continue to strengthen our defenses and response protocols. We're not flying blind. We're staying alert. We're improving every day, and we're prioritizing member trust.
Becky, Good Neighbors FCU, 4 months. 4 months before detecting the breach. What do you think about that? Do you think that's an outlier, or do you think that there are a lot of credit unions in the industry right now that have been breached and don't know it?
Well, we only know about the ones that get reported, right? So therefore, we only know about the ones people know about, which means there's probably more out there that are unknown than are known. And we can sit here all day long and talk about shoulda, coulda, woulda. But at the end of the day, I mean, gosh, this happens all the time. And humans, people, sometimes and these bad guys are so good. They are so good. And they usually do this by social engineering. And social engineering is very, very difficult to detect. It's not like these bad guys. So you say hackers, right? Well, in our head, when we think about hackers, we think about some dude in a basement trying to hack through the firewall at the credit union, right? They're trying to breach the firewall. They're trying to breach the perimeter of the credit union. And that is not usually how they get inside. They get inside because somebody clicked on a link in an email or some device that was connected to their internal networks. Those things are really super hard to find. And even if you have, malware detection and any kind of internal software that's looking for weird things that are happening, a lot of that stuff is buried in logs. So I don't want to say that credit unions are doing a bad job or flying blind. I think that every company, including credit unions, are vulnerable to this kind of thing. And it's super hard to detect. But they did detect it. I understand they were in there for 4 months, but they did detect it. And so at least they had a protocol in place, to Kevin's point, that they knew what to do when they found it and put additional efforts in place to rid their systems of that. But I mean, I kind of wonder what really was the members' ultimate reaction. I mean, how many of you have had your data breached like 1,000 times?
I want to jump in on this. Is the NCUA requires us, if we're hacked and member data is exposed, we have to report it. But I think, Becky, to your point is if member data isn't hacked, and say maybe they're in and just they're acquiring, they're on your network and creating files that's not member sensitive data, they're not going to report that.
It's true.
So I think, to your point, there's a lot more out there. I think what we need to understand that cybersecurity is not just an IT issue, it's a leadership priority. And we have to continue to be reviewing our systems. We got to be tightening controls, ensuring our teams are equipped and trained to respond rapidly. And that's just not IT. To your point, it's malware. Someone sends you an email, you click on it, and you don't even know so we spend a lot of proactive time with our teammates, training them and understanding it. And we sit with our board and we do training with the board on cybersecurity, because ultimately cybersecurity is the responsibility of the board.
Ultimately. Yep.
Becky, you said something that I want to touch on, and I'll start with you, Kevin. Becky, you were mentioning that these data breaches happen so often. Like, I'll get an email from somebody, Joshua, we're sorry to inform you that your data was breached back in 2017. And I'm so used to it now. Like, it's like, dude, I don't even care. Like, what I'm wondering is the perception to the member. I know we don't want a data breach, but like, Kevin, from your perspective, if a data breach happens, are you going to wake up and see that you lost 10% of your membership? I mean, do they care at the end of the day?
I'm going to break this into two things. If it's Target or if it's one of the big box stores that have been hit so many times, Josh, I agree with you. I think that they've gotten benign to this. So, but I think when it comes from your financial institution, that's a big difference, because that's where the pot of gold is. That's where my money is. And our role is to protect that and be good stewards of that money. So when it comes to financial institutions, I think it's a bigger deal.
Becky, your take?
Well, yes, it's a bigger deal. And a data breach is not like a data breach, right? It kind of depends on what information was breached. And digital banking passwords, that would be concerning, right? If that information got out there, I think I would be concerned. But even so, and yes, I think members would be concerned. No, I don't think 10% of the membership would leave. I think that where you see members having the biggest negative response to any kind of cyber or digital occurrence that might affect them is if your digital banking fails, right? So if you're doing a conversion and you don't come back up, or if something happens in your digital banking, they can't log into it, you want to see members freaking out. That is whenever you see it. You send them a letter saying their email address and their social security number, I'm really sorry, got breached. That information is out there, which it probably already is anyway, but it's out there. But if your digital banking, if they can't log into your digital banking, they may have well lost their money. And so you want to talk about people panicking and losing members and walking into your branch upset. It's losing access to their account online.
I mean, one thing COVID did was double the number of people that use our home banking. And it really enforced how important that channel is to everyone. We just went a year ago, we went to Lumen Digital and we went through this process and it was busy. I mean, our abandonment rate went up, but the product was so good that we went live on a Monday. By Wednesday, our abandonment rate was back to where it was. 40% of our members were able to enroll online. You got to make it simple. But we're looking at other products today, and dual authentication is we're looking at voice. We're looking at voice because voice authentication is probably one of the better ones out there because you can't spoof it. There's stuff that you can't do. But we're looking at ways to make sure that we protect our members when they call in here and fraud happens. They get their cell phones, they send texts. So sending texts to the cell phone doesn't always work because they might already have it. So you're just texting the fraudster.
Boeing Employees Credit Union, the nation's fifth largest credit union with $29.5 billion in assets, is embracing what their CFO calls boring quarters as a winning strategy. While their loan originations dropped 6.7% and auto loan lending fell 10.4%, BECU improved their return on assets by focusing on higher margin residential loans in Seattle's expensive housing market. Now, this is where things get really interesting. Their CFO, Drew Wolf, says they're not chasing volume with illogical pricing, particularly in auto lending where market rates don't meet their standards. Kevin, I found this very interesting that BECU is embracing what they're calling these boring quarters. So my question for you, Kevin, is when a $29.5 billion credit union openly admits that they won't do what he calls illogical pricing to chase volume, does that signal then that many other credit unions are making desperate pricing moves to stay competitive right now?
Pricing's an interesting thing because I think it's geographically, where are you? Price really depends on the communities we serve. Every market has its own dynamics, and what works in one region may not make sense in another. At Edition Financial, we focus on sustainable, member-focused decisions, not chasing the short-term volume just to hit numbers. That said, there's a lot of uncertainty in the economy right now. There will be some credit unions getting creative so they can meet their strategic goals. At the end of the day, we all need to run our business that best fits our strategic strategies and our financial needs. So I really think it's you've got to stick at what's your business strategy and what you got to go at. In our market, we're a big auto shop, so we do a lot of auto lending. We do a lot of mortgages, but mortgages have slowed down because of price. Price has jumped 30% in this market. But also rates are the highest they've been in 10 years. But you know what? It's the new norm. I mean, we went from rates that were at 3% during COVID. If you look back, a 6.8 mortgage really is not bad. It's just not what we're used to. And I think the consumer is just going to have to get there. Now, the cost of construction and the cost of some of this home on the residential side is causing a lot of, in our market, the Orlando market, is housing is a big issue. housing, the cost of housing, people were priced out of it, and it's getting better. But guess what? Prices really haven't dropped either.
Becky, when I listen to Drew Wolf, the CFO at BECU, when he's talking about boring quarters, what I really hear him saying is there isn't that many growth opportunities. Let's be moderate and conservative about what we do. Do you think that this mentality of boring quarters or being boring or being more tempered in your growth strategy is going to be the new norm moving forward because of what Kevin said about pricing being strange with housing and the rates being high? Are we kind of running out of places to find growth?
That's kind of a loaded question, but I can tell you that since credit unions began practically, we have very limited ways to grow. All right. So from a regulatory framework, we have like 3 levers we can pull. That's like it, right? Now, the interesting thing is over time, those 3 levers, things can be added to those because new markets emerge or different things happen. But we buy and sell money. That's what we do. That's all we do. And there are very limited ways that we are able to do that. We can buy money in certain ways. There's certain deposit products that we can utilize. We can sell money, and there's certain lending products that we can utilize. And that's pretty much it. So we have to work within kind of a boring box already. Now, when I hear somebody saying boring, to me, that just means status quo, and you don't grow by being status quo. That means you're just kind of sitting still. You're just waiting to see what happens. And that certainly can be a business strategy for a period of time. Now, can you have a 25-year business strategy to be status quo? Probably not a good idea. But every credit union is just different. And there is a time and a season for everything. And yes, certainly, if my rates are higher or lower than what's in the market, then there's probably a strategic reason why that is, because that's what my credit union can do. I might be willing to get loan volume and jeopardize capital. I might be willing to make that a not profitable endeavor for whatever reason. And so every credit union is a little bit different. I don't fault them for being boring. I think it's okay.
Well, and in our market, the other thing, and a lot of credit unions is business. Business is the new opportunity for us. Is we got to be careful. I mean, it's a whole new market. I mean, I've been in the industry 35 plus years. I mean, I remember when we were first able to have checking accounts and we're first able to have mortgages. And I mean, I go back to your point, Becky. I remember the boring days where it was really boring, but we have a lot of opportunities. But I think it's the strategy of the organization is what do they want to grow? Where do they want to grow? Where's the risk? What's their concentration risk? Because there's, we all have concentration risks that we've got to live by. I think the other thing with COVID is I think COVID had some effects on FICO scores. I think that we went from a society that had very little deposit savings to a lot of deposit savings. They paid a lot of stuff off, which changed the FICO score rapidly. And when things reverted back to norm, we had some FICO scores that were overinflated. So you're seeing some issues, delinquency in auto and some other stuff due to this. And of course, at that time, what industry took on more auto loans? Credit unions did. We surpassed the banks in taking on autos. So it's your strategy. What do you keep? What do you sell? I mean, we do indirect stuff, but we also sell. We've sold $160 million worth of our indirect. Retained servicing, but sold it off because, you got to sell some risk off too. And lastly, CECL's played an interesting role in this thing. Moving to CECL, I think there are organizations out there that didn't fund it fully. And you have this FICO score issue where delinquency rose and some of this other stuff, and it's putting a squeeze on them because now you got to fund that CECL, the CECL account saying you got to fund it. So I think there's a lot of dynamics that are playing.
In a recent LinkedIn post, the CMO of Ahrefs, a SaaS company that grew from under $10 million to over $100 million in annual recurring revenue with no VC funding or sales team, says that their success came from content marketing that made them discoverable. So people can find you, resonate with something you say, and develop affinity for you and your beliefs. So this got me thinking. I wanted to get a perspective outside of the credit union news. I love Ahrefs. They're a great SaaS company. It got me thinking about what credit unions can do to become more discoverable out there in the world. How can we be more discoverable and get in front of more people to get them to understand what a credit union is? So Kevin, when it comes to credit unions, what do you think are the smartest ways to become more discoverable today?
I think it starts, you got to be in the community. You've got to be seen, and you got to be bold. Visibility begins with us at the top, and being on boards. I sit on like 5 boards in the community where I'm interacting with that. And majority of our C-level suite all sits on boards. Social media is important. LinkedIn, public relations. I mean, we have a fantastic public relations department that's constantly getting us in front of people like you all. And you've got to be out there. And our marketing team launched a new brand reintroduction campaign right now as we finalize our merger with Envision. And it says we are 88 years old. And while we're rebranded about 6 years ago from Central Florida Educators to Additional Financial, we don't want people to forget our roots and how long we served the community. And I think it's just being visual. But I also think it's our branch staff. Our branch staff, and I talk to them all the time about, you need to be involved in the communities you serve. And that's the roots of credit unions, is be involved, be present, go to chamber events. When you're in an event, don't stand next to me. You know what I'm going to say. Go work the room, and I'll take new branch leaders and say, okay, I need you to come with me. I'm going to teach you how to work a room, and go talk to, if it's the mayor of Orlando or it's the CEO at UCF, or it's let's introduce you and let's start talking to these people and let them know who we are. And it's amazing. I was in an event a couple of weeks ago, and I sat down at the table and I started talking to this gentleman. He introduced himself. I said, "Hi, I'm Kevin Doherty. I'm with Addition Financial," and all that. And he said, "Wow, I'm hearing a lot of things about you guys in this community." And I said, "That's what we're doing. We want to get out. We want to be seen. We're here for our members. We want to be part of the communities we serve." And I think we just got to continue to do that.
Getting out in the community, I couldn't agree more. I love it when I see it. It makes me feel like credit unions are real and differentiated being in the community. Becky, discoverability. If I'm a leader at a credit union, should I put my banner on the Green Monster at a Boston Red Sox game? Should I sponsor a football team? Like, talk to me about how we as a movement can get more discoverable, get more in front of people. What do we do?
Well, at the end of the day, we do business with people, right? Not just credit unions or banks or businesses. We do business with people. And in order to create relationships with people, you have to get out into the community. And word of mouth is the most difficult thing to gain, but it is also the most influential and the most beneficial to any organization. If somebody, a friend of yours, refers you somewhere, that's a word of mouth referral. That goes really, really far. The likelihood of you taking them up on that referral is very, very high. So anytime you have an opportunity to meet with people in person and create relationships, that is going to be beneficial. However, that doesn't scale. That's not the same as putting your name on a stadium like you talked about, Joshua. I'm not recommending that we put our names on stadiums, but that is the kind of visibility that you're talking about that this SaaS company did. There are many, many things from a broader visibility reach. You talked about making sure people understand what credit unions are, making sure that they understand where we are, what it is that we do, because there still is kind of a misunderstanding of the word credit union, right? Well, is that a place where I have to be part of a union in order to get credit? Or do I have to have good credit? I don't understand what that means. And so we have a little bit of a challenge as an industry trying to, especially the younger generations, trying to help them understand. But there are new channels. To your point, can an old dog learn new tricks? And we're kind of an old dog. So can we learn better, more effective ways to have that broader reach besides just the person-to-person reach, which we are very, very good at. And I'm not saying we stop doing that, but I think there are. And I think there are some credit unions that are doing a really good job of it.
So I'm just going to tag into that one. We changed our name from Central Florida Educators Federal Credit Union, which was a mouthful, to Addition Financial Credit Union. And that's our true name, but we brand ourselves as Addition Financial. To your point, we went round and round about credit unions, and it gets lost in the message. It gets lost with the younger generation. That's why we went with Addition Financial. The other thing we've done is we have the naming rights at the basketball arena at University of Central Florida, UCF. It's the Addition Financial Arena. And we're trying these things because I know we've talked to the board. The board's like, well, what's the ROI on that? And we said, well, now that they're in the Big 12, guess what? Every game that's on ESPN, Addition Financial Arena comes up. They do 300 graduations in that arena. I can't give you an ROI, but you know what? The name presence alone, we couldn't afford. I mean, it does amazing things for us. I want to add just one other thing that we've done is we have 12 high school branches completely run by high school students in high schools in Orange County, Seminole, Lake County. They're Addition Financial Credit Unions. We bring these people in, we train them, cash handling skills. They have to put resumes together. They have to interview. We teach them financial literacy so they go out to their peers and teach them financial literacy. They don't want financial literacy from an old man like me. They want to hear from their friend. And the process is working. And the new market going into in Tallahassee, the superintendent came to the credit union up there and said, we want a branch. We want immediately. And it pays. And the superintendents love it because financial literacy in this country is a problem. People don't understand credit. They don't understand some of the fundamentals. And we're there, getting some branding. I mean, it's in these high school branches. The other piece of this that we didn't even see, we're hiring probably 10% of the people that come out. We're hiring here at Addition Financial or other credit unions in town. The CEOs love our CEO. They're like, oh yeah, we've hired about 3 or 4 of your people. So it's the community. It's about being in the community. And then we do internships. We have interns coming in starting next week. I think last year we had 26 interns, and they can intern anywhere within the credit union. You can be in accounting, you can be in marketing, you can be in the branches. But one of the things is they meet with us for half a day. That we bring the C-level in, and they rotate, and they meet with us. And I learn so much when I sit with them and I ask questions. It's like, as much as they're asking me and how I got where I am, I'm learning from them is how can we continue to grow this business?
That brings us to the end of the show. Kevin, this is where we like to get final thoughts. Based on our conversation today, what are the final thoughts that you'd like to leave with listeners?
We have to be relevant as an industry. We have to try new things. And if we're not, we're going to become irrelevant. And relevancy means you don't exist. And we're constantly looking at ways to grow. We're constantly looking at ways to put us out in the community. We're constantly trying things. But we're also saying we got to grow too. We have to grow. We've got to scale this thing so we can continue to do what we're doing. I've been in this industry my whole career, and I've been very blessed. And I don't want this industry to go away because I think we're doing things that others are not. And that is so important today. It's so important to kids to have an option. We're serving people that the large banks don't want. We don't get business from the other credit unions. We get them from all the big banks because they're not serving their members. So I want to make sure that we're relevant and that as an industry, we continue to grow.
Well said, Kevin. If listeners want to get in touch with you, what is the best way to do that?
On my LinkedIn account, you can message me in LinkedIn and I'll respond that way.
All right. Becky, final thoughts.
Everything Kevin said is true. I think that one of the things I hear more and more, and I too have spent my entire career in this industry, 28 years, and the last probably decade, the alarm bells started sounding from an industry perspective about, hey, we're dying. And in the last 5 years, it's started to reach levels where, people are really concerned about it. Pretty much everybody I talk to in this industry that has been around as long as Kevin and I have this concern. And what do we do to make sure that we stay relevant? Well, one way is to make sure that we are resonating with the younger generation. And what Kevin said earlier, and what I want to reiterate, is that young people are our future. Young people are everybody's future. But one thing that I have noticed when I interact with young people, Gen Z in particular, those are the youngest ones now that are articulate and sort of adult. Gen Alpha are still little kids right now. But I have hope. Because when you interact with those guys, they are incredible. And they are the future.
Becky, how do people get in touch with you?
LinkedIn, baby.
LinkedIn, baby. I want to thank our guest, Kevin Dougherty. I want to thank my co-host, Becky Reed. And I want to thank you, our listeners, for continuing to support and listen to another episode of Grow Your Credit Union. If you like the show, please follow us on your podcast player of choice. And if you want to be a guest or would like to talk about sponsorship opportunities, head to growyourcreditunion.com to learn more. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.